Pro 14 final. It was this morning for me. Got up to watch Leinster against Munster, as I said, in the Pro 14 final. It felt like a familiar story. Now, remember, I'm a guy who watches far too little of the Pro 14. I'm hoping to watch a wee bit more in the future. Obviously, this is the end of the season, so it'll be a while before I can watch the Pro competition itself. But yeah, there's teams I don't catch up with enough. See them in Europe sometimes, see the odd Pro 14 game, especially when there's a big clash. But as I said, familiar feeling. And I was thinking, why have I seen this game before? And then I remembered back. Well, I didn't remember. I looked it up. Last year's Pro 14, the semi-final, 13-3 to Leinster in the 2020 semi, 16-6 in the final this year. It's eerily similar, isn't it? Relatively low scoring, kind of battle of attrition between the two sides, with Leinster overall just being kind of comfortable. Without blowing Munster off the park, they still did enough to never really look like losing it. Anyway, I'll go over some of the key events of the game, some of the stats, and yeah, you guys who watch the Pro 14 more than me will definitely have to let me know more about where these two teams are at, because as I said, from what limited amount I've seen, it just seems like Munster's not quite able to crack Leinster down. But I mean, that's far from unique to Munster, right? I know Munster Scott Larkham as the attack coach, and I'm pretty critical of him because when he was at the Brumbies, his team's attack was fairly limited to big old mauls. So when I see a game like this, I think, man, it's same old Stephen Larkham, but it's not really a fair comparison when I only really see them playing Leinster, because my Blues, for example, in Super Rugby, have had a relatively decent turnaround in their fortunes in the last couple of years, but we still can't beat the Crusaders to save our lives. They gave us a hiding just a couple of weeks ago. So if you were to look at the Blues results only against the Crusaders, it would look like we are still terrible, but we're not. But anyway, I know Munster, if you're making a final, you're obviously not a terrible team. Anyway, enough of that stuff. I'll start talking about the actual game. Leinster took the lead with a penalty after an eerie period of kind of early dominance, a bunch of phases. And Leinster were determined to pass the ball into touch. Almost said putch. Maybe that should be a term for passing the ball into touch. O'Loughlin to Lama was the first one they kind of had. Looked like a 2-on-1. And the ball ended up going into touch, so it was a missed opportunity for Leinster. They took another shot on about 11 minutes to make it 6-0. Munster replied relatively quickly, though, to make it 6-3. Leinster had another pass into touch on about 25 minutes. And then Munster took some bizarre quick line out on their own, goal line, where they were going to counter-attack, I guess. I would have thought set a line out, have a nice solid exit. Maybe they're worried about Big Dev, who I think has broken some Leinster record for number of caps, so congratulations to him. But yeah, they knocked it on, so Leinster had a chance from a scrum on 26 minutes, but Fardy got held up after really hitting the ball at pace. That was a bit of a get out of jail for Munster. Leinster were putting heaps of pressure on, but eventually did let Munster off by giving away an obstruction penalty. That was around about the half an hour mark. Earls did well to stop a Leinster build-up and attack with a wee intercept of his own. And that was Keenan, I think, who had the line break for that one. And he's still sharp, man. I really like watching Hugo Keenan. He's that kind of guy that the first time you see him, if you've never seen him play before, you look at him and go, he doesn't look very good. But that's one not to judge a book by its cover, man. He's quick, he's agile, and he's bloody good under the high ball. I keep suggesting he must have a Gaelic football background, and everyone tells me everyone in Ireland's got a Gaelic football background at some point, so it makes sense. But man, is he good under the high ball. Munster took a long shot at goal, which went wide on 35 minutes. They hit the post with another one. Carberry, a pretty straightforward one. And then they did get one right before halftime to make it 6-all at halftime, if memory serves. Run meters at halftime is 237 to Leinster, 100 to Munster, so more than double for Leinster. 68% possession, 74% territory. So the fact that the scoreline was still relatively tight seems like a miracle. Clean breaks 4-1. Leinster have made 58 tackles. Munster have made 83. It's like you can't keep that up for the whole game, surely. I should say, and I failed to mention it at the start, the conditions didn't seem all that conducive to like free-flowing running rugby. It seemed bloody windy, and some of the kicks were going pretty haywire, to be fair. Difficult conditions, wet and windy. I think the rain kind of eased off in the second half a bit, but it seemed very windy. Some of the guys who don't usually struggle were kind of having a few issues. Leinster did get held up on 44 minutes after a big period of pressure, but they broke through on 47 minutes through Jack Conan. And speaking of guys who've kind of been in proper form, I know CJ Stunder's leaving is going to leave a bit of a void in Ireland, but the fact that you got Conan in top form, I know he's no spring chicken, but Conan's in great form. Doris is coming back. Gavin Coombs, I'll get to him a bit later, but he looks like a proper unit. And there's other guys as well. So there's still plenty of depth and loose forwards in Irish rugby. So although CJ is going to be a big guy to miss, there's certainly other guys who are going to step up and fill that void. They'd gone through so many phases. I don't even know how many it was, but they made it 13 points to 6. Leinster did miss another penalty on like 50-something minutes. Again, the wind is the one that kind of took that wide. Byrne got one. Ross Byrne, he'd come back on for Sexton after Sexton had gone off. I forget, was it a HIA? I watched too much rugby over this weekend, folks, but he got the penalty. 16-6. And with 10 minutes to go, someone in the live stream said it, like 10 points at that point felt like 100. It never looked like Munster were going to be able to go and score 10 points, get 2 scores. So, yeah, they did throw it around a wee bit at the end. Like they brought on the substitutes, they brought on Casey and they brought on Hanrahan and whatnot. They tried to throw it around in their own half, but they ended up just going backwards, and Leinster had a wee chance at the end, but then just ended up kicking it out to end the game. So, yeah, it's another title for Leinster. They just keep trucking on in the Pro 14. Very similar to the Crusaders in Super Rugby. It's just like a relentless machine that just keeps going and going and going. And they're an easy team to dislike, in that you always want to see someone else have a win, unless you're a Leinster fan. Like, New Zealanders always want to see someone else win apart from the Crusaders. But you can't not respect. You have to respect a team that's that good. You don't get that good by accident. You're breeding talent. You're bringing young guys through the ranks. Sometimes even the guys who are on the fringe end up going to other teams. That happens here in New Zealand. But yeah, man, you don't get that good by accident. Other teams just need to catch up. It's going to be very fascinating to see how the South African teams go up against the likes of Leinster in the Rainbow Cup and whatnot, which is not too far away. Final stats finish 472, 193. That's the run meters. So Leinster all over it. Possession 64%, territory 71%. So yeah, clean break 7-2 for Leinster. Defenders beaten 29-9. Turnovers conceded somehow is 18-7, with Munster having 18. So despite having only 36% possession, they end up with more turnovers conceded. Leinster tackle at 94%, which is test match level. They make 141 tackles. Munster have to make 178. 86% is their tackle percentage, which is also pretty respectable. Clearly, they didn't give away many points, but yeah, penalties conceded as 9-7, relatively low. Individuals, Henshaw, who still looks like a proper unit, doesn't he? 77 run meters, 3 defenders beaten. Josh van der Fleer makes 20 out of 20 tackles. Coombs, as I mentioned, he's another unit. 48 run meters, 1 clean break, 3 defenders beaten. I remember in the first half, it was 100 run meters to Munster, and he had 33 of them. So, a third in a 15-man game. Tyke Byrne makes 20 out of 20 tackles. CJ Stunner makes 20 out of 21. But overall, as I said, pretty familiar story with Leinster just being too good. They never looked that excited when they lift that trophy. I guess it's like, 4 times in a row now? So it's just kind of to be expected. Where do you go from here? I don't know. There's still European games on. So they'll still have a good test in front of them. Obviously, Munster is still in Europe as well. They've got a big game against Toulouse coming up. So there's still plenty of rugby to play. But, yeah, I'll definitely have to watch some more of Munster playing teams other than Leinster so I can see the attack actually in full flow. because it always seems to grind to a wee bit of a halt when I see them play Leinster. But that being said, like, Leinster didn't tear them apart, but they just looked to be doing enough for mine. Anyway, you guys let me know your thoughts on this one. Can you see any teams beating Leinster to a pro title anytime soon, or do you think this dynasty just continues to go on and on and on? Who's going to drop a title first? Will it be the Crusaders or will it be Leinster? That could be one that's worth a shout. But anyway, you guys have any thoughts? And I'll talk to you soon. See you later.